Good frickin' morning, boys and girls. My name is Nick. I am so glad to see your happy faces again. And if you are new here, please subscribe below. It is free. And if it's free, it's for me and you. Today, we are breaking down the Sony RX0. First off, Sony has absolutely been killing it in the digital SLR photo video game, and that's why this review is so hard for me. As always, you be the judge. This is my opinion. This is my sample footage. I just want to help you guys make a better decision for yourself. Two quick notes. First, we are looking at the RX0 for video, not photo. Okay, this very may well be an amazing photo camera. I don't know. I didn't test it for that, but I did test it for video, and I'm gonna share my opinion for video. Second, I am going to throw in some Hero 6 footage from the GoPro Hero 6 that just came out. And this is not a comparison between these two cameras, this versus this, but I want some other camera footage for you guys to look at. So when I'm talking about stability issues with the RX0, stuff like that, so you can say, oh, I get what he's saying in terms of the motion blur, the instability, okay? And when I filmed with these two cameras, I put them together like little lovers, and I got all the shots right next to each other, so you can have a direct comparison of the scene with these two different cameras. All right, let's dive into it. This camera just disappoints at every single turn. And I might be doing it wrong. And if I am doing it wrong, if you watch this whole video and you say, oh, Nick, you missed this crucial thing, please comment below. I want to be wrong. I really, really want to be wrong about this camera because I was so stoked to have this camera. It was gonna work freaking amazing with my A7S II. I was gonna have it, boom, crushing it. Yeah, that's how I pictured it. If this is what I think it is, I'm very, very excited. Would you look at that? Look at, oh, just adorable. Oh, it's adorable. Look at this thing. I did a ton of research on it. I played with it. I read the Q&As with the Sony experts. I even called Sony for half an hour and we talked about this camera. So I think I did a lot of research to figure out how to use it. And I honestly, at this point, I can't say that I'm gonna keep this camera. And here's why. We're gonna start with exposure. There's 4 things that you can adjust when you're adjusting your exposure when you're shooting video. You can use ND filters, you can adjust your shutter speed, you can adjust your aperture, and you can adjust your ISO, okay? And for this camera, you can adjust your ISO and you can adjust your shutter speed, but you cannot adjust the aperture. It is stuck at f4, and you cannot adjust, well, you can't put ND filters on it, so you can't adjust your exposure with ND filters. Why is this important? Because shutter speed is super important to how your video looks. Here's a quick lesson about shutter speed. So if you're shooting 24p, you want your shutter speed to be a 50th. You want the denominator, 1/50th, to be double your frame rate. That is gonna give you a normal looking image. So if you break this kind of ground rule for exposing your image with your shutter speed versus your frame rate, it's gonna cause a big variance in the way the video looks. So for example, if you're doing 1/500th of a second for a shutter speed and you're shooting at 24p, that video is gonna come out and play back really crisp. All the movement's gonna be very jarring and choppy. Anytime you move it, it's gonna be like, okay? Versus if you do 1/30th of a second at 24p, that footage is gonna be more like motion blurred. Everything that's moving is gonna have a blur and almost have a tail to it. It's gonna be very smooth looking, okay? So it's a very, very different look. And so why is that a problem with this camera? That's a problem with this camera is because if I shoot in intelligent auto mode with this camera, it's going to adjust the shutter speed to expose the image properly. So I could be at 24p and I'm inside and I'm at a 30th, right? and it's exposed properly, the image is exposed properly, and all motion is gonna be blurred, sort of, and it's gonna have a smooth look to it. And then I walk outside, and the shutter speed jumps through the freaking ceiling to 1/800th. And all of a sudden, it's super crispy, high motion, like the movement's gonna be really jarring and choppy. And then you move into an exposed area where maybe the light's perfect, and now you're at a 50th, and you're at 24p, and it looks perfect. So as you film with this, you're gonna be going between all these different worlds of motion automatically if you have it in that intelligent mode, right? So how are you gonna fix that? Well, I'm gonna shoot in manual, duh. Okay, but here's the problem. You're in manual, right? You got 24p locked in, you got your shutter speed dialed at a 50th, your aperture stuck at f4, okay? So that's pretty open. A lot of light's coming in at f4, right? So there's tons of light coming in the camera. Your ISO is at 100, it's sunny out. Your image is just gonna be white, it's gonna be blown out. You can't put ND filters on here. So that is why, for me, that's the biggest deal breaker for this camera is I can't expose an image properly while keeping the motion in my video looking normal. And again, maybe I'm doing this wrong. Please tell me if I am. I would love that to be the case. With the RX0, you can shoot video. You can go out, you can put it on auto, you can shoot it. It's gonna do a decent job of exposing it right, but your footage is either gonna be really crispy and choppy, and it's gonna go from that to normal, and then it's gonna go to like super smooth, and it looks weird. You've seen the footage I've intercut here, and it just looks weird. It doesn't look good. So if you're okay with that, then feel free to use this for video. But if you're not okay with that, then you might have to look elsewhere because this isn't gonna do the job. The other thing that's kind of disappointing about this is the same thing happens in slow-mo. So you might be like, oh, this is gonna be my slow-mo camera. Well, you're gonna run into the same exact issue. Your shutter speed is gonna be jumping up and down like a little kangaroo on the outback. Okay, it's not great. So I had the same issue with the DJI Phantom series. You fly the drone up and you've got the regular out of the box configuration and your shutter speed is gonna jump up to 1,000th, maybe 1/2000th. It's just gonna keep going up as it gets sunny, and then all of a sudden you have this very choppy image. But with the Phantom 4, you can unscrew the filter on the front of the camera, you buy an ND kit, you pop it on there, and then you can fly your drone and get your exposure right. So for Sony, I don't know where I can screw an ND filter on here. Also, I don't want to. This is supposed to be the easy camera. I don't want to have to deal with that. So that's the first massive thing that you want to think about when you get this. Even if you're not shooting on a professional level, your footage isn't gonna look as good as it can. So I don't know if this is the best camera for a professional or an amateur for shooting video. Here's a handful of other reasons why this Sony RX0 has disappointed me for video, in addition to the major exposure issue. So first and foremost, if you are not in the Sony world, I'm in the Sony world, I understand the navigation and the menus. If you are not, good luck trying to figure out the menus on this thing. The back screen is small, the buttons are tiny, and there's a gajillion menus in here, okay? So getting through it for me was easy because I'm coming from Sony. And if you're coming from Sony, then maybe it's not a big deal. But if you're not, and you're trying to learn the menu configuration with this, it's gonna be challenging. Another thing about this camera that is really disappointing is that internally, it does 1080 only. You cannot shoot 4K internally with this. So if you want to shoot 4K, you've got to pop open the back here. You've got to put a big recorder on the back. You're compromising the waterproofness of it by popping off the back. And now you've got a massive recorder. What's the point? Why would I want to put a recorder with this the point of this camera is that it's tiny. I don't want to have to do that. I'm fine with 1080p, but I mean, come on, like this is new. This is new, you guys. Another huge thing about this that you will see in my footage is in video mode, I couldn't figure out autofocus. I spoke with Sony on the phone about it. We couldn't figure it out. You can set your focus, you can use manual, but if I'm running around filming video with this, I got so many blurry shots because the focus wasn't right. No autofocus in video. There's autofocus in photo, but no autofocus in video? Oh, brutal, brutal. The auto white balance, isn't fantastic. The color shift as you know, pan up from the ground, pan up to someone, you can see these color shifts happening. It's just not, it's not on point. You know, auto white balance isn't ideal, but when I'm running around with my Sony a7S vlogging, it's on auto white balance. I don't have time to think about everything, so it's just on auto white balance, and it looks good, it looks fine. It's not an issue. With this though, I saw it right away. Pan up, boom, looks red. Oh, why? Weird, pan down, looks green. It just couldn't handle it. This camera also has super slow-mo, right? And you thought, wow, that's really cool. The super slow-mo is restricted to 2 seconds at 960 frames per second, which is insane, but it's restricted to 2 seconds. When you do it, it does this weird render on the camera, so you're not even sure what the hell you're shooting. And then also, it just falls apart in low light, big time. I mean, it looked like a VHS to me in low light. It does not have an internal time lapse, which kind of seems like it would have been, you know, out of the box. Duh. You can pair this up with the Sony Play Memories, and for video, it doesn't send the videos. So it only works for photo, from my experience. You can pair it up, it pairs fine, it's easy, but the videos will not link with the Sony Play Memories on your phone. So you can't send a video to your phone unless, again, I'm doing it wrong, but I tried and it didn't work. And if I am doing it wrong, then it's way too hard to figure that out, so they should fix that. The battery life on this thing is somewhere between 35 minutes and an hour. It's really hard to figure out and inconsistent, so I don't have a high expectation for like a long battery life, but it could have been nice to, you know, hit an hour and a half or something maybe. So then again, you know, disappointed in the battery life. Boom. So now you have all of my information, my tests, and the muck that I waded through to get my head wrapped around the Sony RX0. Sure feels like this camera was intended to be photo first and video second. So if you are photo first, I would highly recommend checking this out. It may be a beast for camera out of your pocket. Click, 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 photo, okay? When I was doing my preliminary research before buying it, it was pitched as a higher end professional grade video camera versus like a GoPro, which is more consumer grade. And unless I'm missing something big, I can't say it is. I've linked below to the RX0. If you are into photography first, you might want to check this out. It might be a fantastic photo camera. If you're into video, proceed with caution at your own risk. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like this video, give that little thumbs up below, clickety clackety. If you are not yet subscribed, please do so below. It is free, and if it's free, it's for me and you. And I look forward to seeing all of you lovely people in the next video. Peace. I wish the sun will go away so my background look better. I wish it would go away so my background would look better. I like the silhouettes of the big pine trees.